Captain stood on the bridge of her patrol ship, the horizon's edge, watching the endless darkness of space through the main window. The stars looked peaceful tonight. She had served in the Earth Defense Fleet for 15 years, and she had learned to love these quiet moments. Her ship moved slowly along the border of human space, near the asteroid belt that marked the edge of their territory. Her crew worked silently at their stations. Lieutenant sat at the tactical console, his eyes fixed on the scanner screens. He was a serious man who rarely smiled but trusted him completely. They had served together for 7 years. "Captain," said suddenly, his voice sharp, "I am detecting unknown ships entering our space." Walked to his station and looked at the screen. 12 ships had appeared at the edge of their scanner range. They were big, much bigger than anything in the human fleet. Their design was unfamiliar, with sharp angles and dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Can you identify them?" asked. Worked his controls, checking against our database now. A moment later his face became pale. "Captain, these are Dominion warships." Felt her stomach drop. Every human who traveled in space knew about They were an ancient empire that had conquered 17 different species across the galaxy. They viewed younger races as insects, not worthy of respect or consideration. Humanity had never had direct contact with them, but the stories from other species were terrifying. "Open a communication channel," ordered. "All frequencies." "Channel open, Captain." Spoke clearly into the microphone. "Attention vessels. This is Captain of the Earth Defense Fleet. You have entered human sovereign space without permission. Please stop your approach and identify your intentions. We wish to avoid any misunderstanding." There was no response. The 12 ships continued moving deeper into human territory. "Repeat the message," said. Sent the message again. And again. The ships ignored them completely, as if the human patrol vessel did not exist at all. "Captain," another officer called out. "They are changing course. They are heading toward Series 7. Series 7 was a mining station built on a large asteroid. Over 3,000 people lived and worked there. Families, children, ordinary people who had come to space seeking a better life. "Follow them," ordered. "Maximum speed." The horizon's edge was fast, but the ships were faster. Watched helplessly as the gap between them grew larger. She kept sending messages, warnings, pleas for communication. The never answered. When they reached Series 7, the ship was still 20 minutes behind. She arrived just in time to watch the massacre. The ships did not demand surrender. They did not ask questions. They simply opened fire. Their weapons tore through the mining station like it was made of paper. Saw the explosions, the debris flying into space, the small figures of people being thrown into the vacuum. The station broke apart in less than 3 minutes. "No," whispered. "No, no, no." Could not speak. She could not move. She just watched as 3,000 human beings died in front of her eyes. The ships did not slow down, did not stop to examine their work. They simply turned and continued deeper into human space, as if destroying the station had been nothing more than swatting a fly. "Record everything," finally said, her voice empty. "Send it to Earth Command immediately, Priority 1. On Earth, Admiral received the transmission in the middle of the night. She was 58 years old, a small woman with gray hair and cold eyes. She had fought in the colony wars 30 years ago and had seen terrible things, but nothing had prepared her for this. She watched the footage in her private office alone. She watched it 3 times. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands were shaking. Her aide knocked on the door. "Admiral, we have received confirmation. All 3,217 people on Series 7 are dead. There are no survivors." Stood up slowly. She walked to her window and looked out at the city below. Millions of people sleeping peacefully, unaware that their world had just changed forever. "Admiral," the aide asked nervously, "what are your orders?" Turned to face him. Her eyes were dry, but something in them had hardened into steel. "Wake the War Council." The aide blinked. "The full council. Admiral, it is 3 in the morning and some members are on other planets. It will take hours to—" "I do not care if it takes days," interrupted. "Wake them, wake all of them, and activate the unification protocol." The aide's face went white. The unification protocol had not been used in 200 years. It was created for one purpose only: to unite all of humanity under a single command in times of ultimate crisis. Every fleet, every soldier, every factory, every resource across all 12 colony worlds would answer to one authority. "Admiral," the aide said slowly, "are you certain?" Looked at the frozen image on her screen. The last moment of Series 7, captured forever. Families torn apart. Children dead in the cold vacuum of space. And the ships flying away without a second glance. "They did not even answer our calls," said quietly. "They did not demand surrender or make threats. They simply killed our people like they were nothing, like we were nothing." She turned to her aide. "They think we are insects. They think we will cry and hide and accept what they have done. They are wrong." Within 1 hour, emergency broadcasts began appearing on every screen across all 12 human colonies. Citizens woke up to the face of President, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes that now held only sadness and anger. "My fellow humans," she began, "today we have suffered a tragedy that words cannot describe. Today, we have been reminded that the universe is not a safe place, and that there are those who see our kindness as weakness. The Dominion has murdered our people without warning, without reason, without mercy. They believe we will do nothing. They believe we are too small, too young, too afraid." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was iron. "They are wrong. Today I am announcing the activation of the unification protocol. Today, humanity speaks with one voice. And our message to the Dominion is simple. You have touched our borders. You have killed our children. Now you will learn what happens when you wake a sleeping giant." Across 12 worlds, people watched in silence. Some cried, some screamed in anger, but all of them, every single human being, felt something change inside them. Fear was replaced by cold determination. Grief became fuel for something darker. In her office, Admiral began planning. She did not sleep that night. She would not sleep much in the months to come. They had made a terrible mistake. They had assumed that humanity, a young species with a small fleet, would be easy prey. They did not know about human history. They did not know about the endless wars, the suffering, the unbreakable will to survive that had carried humanity through ice ages and plagues and disasters. They did not know that humans had spent their entire existence fighting, adapting, and refusing to die. They would learn. And by the time they understood their mistake, it would be far too late. Captain stayed at the site of Series 7 for 3 more hours, collecting debris and searching for survivors that she knew she would never find. When she finally turned her ship toward home, her eyes were red from crying, but her jaw was set with determination. "We will make them pay," she whispered to the ghosts of the station. "I promise you, we will make them pay." The stars that had looked peaceful now seemed to watch with cold anticipation. The galaxy was about to witness something it had never seen before. Humanity united in fury, marching to war with no mercy in their hearts. 3 months had passed since the series massacre. The Dominion expected humanity to send diplomats begging for peace. They expected crying and apologies and promises to stay out of the way. They had conquered 17 species, and all of them had reacted the same way, with fear and submission. The ambassador arrived at Earth's orbital station on a morning in late spring. His name was, and he was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 eyes that looked down at humans with obvious disgust. He walked through the station like he owned it, his guards pushing aside anyone who came too close. General was waiting for him in the conference room. The general was 62 years old, with a shaved head and scars on his face from battles long ago. He had written 3 books on military strategy and had never lost a war. He sat calmly at the table, his hands folded in front of him. Ambassador said politely, "Please sit." Remain standing. "I will not be long. I am here to accept your surrender. The terms are simple. You will give us your outer colonies. You will reduce your fleet to defensive ships only. You will pay tribute to the Dominion every cycle. In return, we will not destroy your species." Listen patiently. When finished, the general reached into his jacket and pulled out a single sheet of paper. He slid it across the table. "What is this?" asked. "Our response." Picked up the paper. His 4 eyes scanned the words, and slowly his expression changed from confusion to disbelief. "This is a declaration of war against the Dominion," he laughed, a strange clicking sound. "You cannot be serious." "I am always serious," said. "You have 12 worlds. We have over 300. Your fleet is pathetic. We have crushed species 10 times your size. This is suicide." Stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the blue curve of Earth filled the view. "Ambassador, I want you to look at something." He pointed to the planet below. "Do you see those lights on the night side? Those are cities. Billions of people live down there, and on our 12 colony worlds there are billions more." "Numbers mean nothing," said. "Your technology is inferior, your ships are weak." "Perhaps," agreed. "But let me ask you something. In all your conquests, how many species actually chose to fight to the end? How many refused to surrender, even when they knew they would lose?" Hesitated. "None. They all submitted eventually. It is the logical choice." Turned to face him. "That is because you have never met humans before. We are not logical, Ambassador. We are stubborn, we are angry, and we have a very long memory." He leaned closer. "You killed 3,000 of our people like they were insects. Children died in the cold vacuum of space, and you did not even bother to answer our calls." "They were in our way," said dismissively. "Casualties happen." "Yes," said softly, "they do." He pressed a button on the table. The door opened and 2 guards entered. "Ambassador, you will now return to your ship and deliver our message to your leaders. Tell them that humanity has done the math. We know how many of us will die. We have accepted the cost. The question is, have they?" Stared at him for a long moment. For the first time, something like doubt flickered in his eyes. Then he turned and walked out without another word. Across the 12 colonies, the war machine was already moving. On the planet Nu, Private Menu stood in a crowd of recruits, watching transport ships fill the sky. He was 20 years old, a farmer's son who had never held a weapon until 3 months ago. Now he wore the uniform of the United Human Forces, and he was about to go to war. "Scared?" asked the soldier next to him, a woman named. "Terrified," Menu admitted. "Good, scared people are careful. Careful people survive." Above them, the orbital shipyards worked without rest. Ships that would normally take 2 years to build were being completed in 6 months. Factory workers slept in shifts, never stopping. Scientists pushed themselves to the edge of collapse. The entire species had become a single organism with one purpose: war. In a secret laboratory deep beneath the mountains of Earth, Doctor presented her work to the War Council. She was young for such an important position, only 35, with messy hair and tired eyes. But her mind was brilliant, and her weapons were terrifying. "This is Project Hammer," she explained, showing holographic images of strange devices. "We have studied every war humanity has ever fought, from ancient times to the colony wars. We have taken our most effective weapons and improved them with modern technology." Admiral leaned forward. "Show us." Pointed to the first image. Kinetic bombardment platforms. Simple rocks dropped from orbit, accelerated to incredible speeds. No radiation, no fancy technology, just pure physics. One strike can destroy a city. "Old concept," General noted. "They will have defenses against missiles and energy weapons, yes, but these are just rocks. Their sensors might not even recognize them as threats until it is too late." moved to the next image. Adaptive warfare drones. They learn from every battle, share information instantly, and change their tactics in real time. The more you fight them, the smarter they get. President spoke for the first time. And this last one, what is protocol? Hesitated. That one is classified, Madam President, even from this council. I am authorizing you to tell us. Took a deep breath. Protocol is not a weapon of destruction. It is a weapon of truth. We have spent the last 3 months gathering information about the Dominion, their crimes, their lies, the species they have destroyed, the atrocities they have hidden from the galaxy. She paused. When the time is right, we will broadcast everything, every secret, every massacre. We will show the galaxy exactly who they really are. The room was silent for a moment. Then Admiral smiled coldly. I like it. Attack their bodies and their reputation at the same time. On New, Private Menu finished his training and boarded a transport ship. As it lifted off, he looked out the window at the planet below. His family was down there somewhere. His mother, his father, his little sister. He did not know if he would ever see them again. Hey, said, sitting next to him, look at this. She held up her communicator showing a video. It was President, speaking to the soldiers of the fleet. You are about to do something that has never been done before, the President said. You are going to fight an enemy that has never known defeat, an enemy that believes we are nothing. They look at humanity and see a young, weak species that will break under pressure. She paused, and her eyes seemed to look directly at Minu. Show them how wrong they are. Show them what happens when you threaten our families. Show them that humanity does not break. We bend, we adapt, and then we come back stronger. Minu looked at the soldiers around him. Farmers, teachers, engineers, artists, ordinary people from ordinary lives. But in their eyes he saw something extraordinary. Not hatred, not fear, but determination. A quiet, unbreakable will to fight. We are going to win, said suddenly. How do you know? Minu asked. She smiled. Because losing is not an option. It never has been, not for us. The transport ship joined hundreds of others, rising toward the fleet gathering in orbit. Below them, the cities of New glittered in the darkness. Above them, the stars waited. General watched the fleet from his command ship. Thousands of vessels carrying millions of soldiers. The largest military force humanity had ever assembled. It still was not enough to match the numbers, but numbers were not everything. Send a message to all ships, he ordered. Tell them the storm is ready. Tomorrow we march. The Dominion had ruled the stars for 10,000 years. They had crushed every enemy, conquered every obstacle. They believed they were invincible. They were about to discover that they had finally met an opponent who did not care about the odds, an opponent that would rather die than submit, an opponent called humanity. And humanity was very, very angry. Vice Admiral looked at the star map and smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a hunter who had found her prey. Her officers called her the Ghost because of her habit of appearing where enemies least expected. She had spent 20 years studying alien tactics, learning their patterns, memorizing their weaknesses. Now she was about to put that knowledge to use. They expect us to attack their forward bases, she said to her captains. They have positioned their main fleet to intercept us there, so we will not go there. Commander frowned. He was the captain of the assault carrier Unyielding, a massive ship carrying thousands of fighters and soldiers. Then, where do we go? Pointed to a dark region on the map, through the Void Nebula. The room went silent. The Void Nebula was a cloud of unstable gas and radiation that stretched across several star systems. Navigation was nearly impossible. Ships that entered often never came out. That is suicide, one captain said. That is what the Think replied, which is why they have left it completely unguarded. On the other side of the nebula are their supply depots, fuel, ammunition, food, everything their war machine needs. Understood. We destroy the supplies and their frontline fleets starve. Exactly. They have spent 10,000 years fighting enemies who attack from the front. They have never faced an enemy who attacks from behind. Stood up. We leave in 6 hours. Any captain who believes this is too dangerous may stay behind. I will not judge you. No one stayed behind. The journey through the Void Nebula took 3 days. Sensors were useless. Navigation was done by dead reckoning and prayer. Ships flew blind through clouds of radiation that could fry their electronics at any moment. 4 vessels were lost to accidents, but the rest emerged on the other side, exactly where had calculated. The supply stations had no idea what hit them. 7 systems, 12 stations, hundreds of transport ships, all destroyed in a single day. Human fighters screamed out of nowhere, their weapons tearing through defenseless targets. By the time the commanders understood what was happening, 40% of their fuel reserves were gone. Across the galaxy, the news spread like fire. The young species that they had dismissed as insects had just delivered a blow that no one had ever managed before. Other species watched in amazement. Some began to hope. High Commander Delos received the reports in his command center and threw them across the room in rage. He was one of the most feared commanders in the Dominion, a warrior who had personally conquered 3 species. He had been given a simple mission: crush the humans quickly and return to more important matters. Instead, the humans had made him look like a fool. "Find them," he ordered. "Assemble every ship we have. I want those human vessels turned to ash." It took 2 weeks for Delos to gather his fleet. 200 warships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humanity had built. He tracked the human fleet to the system and moved to surround them. Vice Admiral watched the enemy approach. Her fleet had only 60 ships left, many of them damaged from the Nebula crossing. The math was simple: they could not win a direct battle. "All ships," she said calmly, "prepare for the dance." The dance was a tactic that had invented years ago. It was designed for exactly this situation, when you were outnumbered, and the key was to never stay still, never fight fair, and always make the enemy pay for every meter of space. The battle began at dawn, measured by Earth time. Ships advanced in perfect formation, confident in their superior numbers. Human ships scattered like frightened animals, they laughed at their cowardice. Then the first command ship exploded. It happened so fast that no one understood. One moment the ship was there. The next, a human destroyer had appeared from behind an asteroid, fired all its weapons at point-blank range, and vanished again. The command ship broke apart, taking 2,000 crew with it. "Impossible," Delos whispered. "They cannot hide from our sensors." But they could. Human ships were smaller, faster, and designed for exactly this kind of warfare. They hid behind asteroids, inside debris fields, even in the shadows of ships themselves. They struck without warning and disappeared before anyone could react. Commander led the assault on Station, the main military base in the system. His carrier released wave after wave of fighters, each one piloted by someone who had lost family or friends in the series massacre. They fought with a ferocity that shocked the defenders. "They are insane," one officer transmitted before his station was destroyed. "They do not fear death at all." It was true. Human pilots flew their damaged fighters directly into enemy ships when their weapons ran out. Ground soldiers advanced through fire without hesitation. Medics treated wounds while bullets flew around them. Fear existed, but it was buried beneath something stronger: the absolute refusal to lose. By the end of the first day, 20 human ships were destroyed. But so were 50 vessels, including 3 command ships. Delos could not believe it. His fleet was winning by the numbers, but the humans fought like each loss cost them nothing. They sacrificed individual ships to destroy more valuable targets. They used tactics that no sane commander would consider, and they never, ever stopped coming. On the second day, Delos ordered a full assault. Every ship, every weapon focused on destroying the human fleet once and for all. For 12 hours, the battle raged across the system. Explosions lit up the darkness of space. Thousands died on both sides. Vice Admiral commanded from the bridge of her flagship, giving orders in a calm voice even as her ship was hit again and again. She watched friends die. She watched ships under her command break apart, and she kept fighting. Admiral, her tactical officer, said, "We have lost 38 ships. We cannot continue." "Yes, we can," replied. "Look at their formation." The fleet had become scattered during the assault, each ship trying to catch the elusive human vessels. Their perfect formation was gone. Their coordination was broken. "Signal all remaining ships," ordered. "Execute hammer fall." Hammer fall was the final phase of the dance. Every surviving human ship turned at the same moment and charged directly at the command vessels. It was a suicide attack, or so it seemed. But at the last second, each ship released its remaining missiles in a coordinated strike. 60 missiles hit Delos' flagship simultaneously. The explosion was visible from every corner of the system. The High Commander survived barely, but his ship was crippled. Without his leadership, the fleet fell into confusion. "Retreat," Delos ordered, his voice filled with disbelief. "All ships retreat." The greatest fleet that had ever assembled against a single enemy fled from the system. They left behind nearly 70 destroyed ships and thousands of dead soldiers. The humans had lost 40 ships, but they had won. Commander stood on the surface of station, now under human control. Around him, soldiers were taking prisoners. Unlike the massacre at Ceres, the humans treated their captives humanely. Food, water, medical care, everything according to the rules of war. "Why?" a captured officer asked. "We would have killed you all. Why do you not do the same?" Thought about it for a long moment. "Because we are not you," he finally said. "We came here to win a war, not to become monsters." Across the galaxy, other species watched the battle with growing amazement. The Dominion had been bloodied for the first time in centuries. A young species, dismissed as nothing, had proven that the mighty empire could bleed. And if they could bleed, then maybe, just maybe, they could fall. On a dozen worlds, slaves and conquered peoples began to whisper. They began to hope. They began to plan. The war was far from over, but the first blow had been struck, and the galaxy would never be the same. 1 year had passed since humanity declared war. 1 year of blood, fire, and endless sacrifice. The human fleet had pushed deep into territory, capturing system after system, but victory came at a terrible price. Colonel stood in the ruins of a city on the planet. Her uniform was dusty, her face tired, her eyes empty. She had led the ground assault that captured this world, the first planet to fall to an outside power in 800 years. History books would remember this moment. All could think about was the dead. "Colonel," her lieutenant called out, "the local population is gathering in the central square. They want to speak with you." Sighed, she had expected this. The civilians would beg for mercy, plead for their lives. She would have to explain that humanity was not here to slaughter innocents. It was exhausting. She walked to the square with a small escort. Thousands have stood there watching her with fear in their 4 eyes. They looked different from the soldiers she had fought. Thinner, weaker. Some had scars that looked old and painful. An elderly stepped forward. He was bent with age, his gray skin wrinkled, his voice weak. "Are you the commander?" he asked. "I am Colonel of the United Human Forces." The elderly did something that shocked her. He knelt down and touched his forehead to the ground. Around him, other civilians did the same. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for freeing us." Stared at him. "What?" The elderly looked up and she saw tears in his eyes. "We are not true. We are a species conquered by the Dominion 500 years ago. They took our world, killed our leaders, and forced us to serve them. We have been slaves for generations." He gestured at the crowd. All of us, slaves, and now you have set us free. Felt the world shift beneath her feet. She had come here expecting to find enemies. Instead, she found victims. People just like the ones who died on Series 7. People who had suffered under cruelty for centuries. Stand up, she said gently. Please, we do not want your submission, we want your freedom. The news spread quickly through the human command structure. General received the reports and called an emergency meeting of the War Council. This changes everything, he said. The Dominion is not one species. It is an empire built on slavery. Most of their territory is filled with conquered peoples who hate them. President nodded slowly. If we can turn those peoples against their masters, the Dominion would collapse from within, Admiral finished. But there is a risk. Some of our soldiers want revenge. They lost family at Ceres. They may not care about the difference between and their slaves. The debate lasted for hours. Some argued that humanity should focus on destruction, burning everything in their path until they begged for peace. Others believed that mercy was more powerful than vengeance. In the end, President made the decision. We will not become the thing we are fighting, she declared. Every world we capture will be offered a choice. Join us as allies, remain neutral, or leave. We will not force anyone. We will not create new slaves to replace old ones. This will slow down our advance, General warned. It will cost more lives. I know, said quietly. But if we win this war by becoming monsters, then we have lost everything that makes us human. Back on, Colonel began the difficult work of building peace. It was not easy. Her soldiers were suspicious of the locals. The locals were terrified of her soldiers. Centuries of hatred and fear did not disappear overnight. But slowly, things began to change. Human doctors set up hospitals and treated sick children. Human engineers repaired broken water systems and power plants. Human soldiers shared their food with hungry families. Pilot was one of the soldiers assigned to escort humanitarian supplies. He had joined the war to avenge his parents, who had died on Series 7. He had spent months dreaming of killing every he could find. Now he stood in a hospital, watching a human doctor treat a small alien child with a broken arm. The child looked up with huge, frightened eyes. It is okay, the doctor said gently. He is not going to hurt you. He is here to protect you. The child slowly relaxed. Its tiny hand reached out and touched his finger. Something inside broke. Not his anger, that was still there, but something else shifted. He realized that the war was not about killing. It was about saving. Saving people like this child, who had done nothing wrong except be born in the wrong place. I do not understand, he said to the doctor. Why are we helping them? They are. No, the doctor replied. They conquered them just like they tried to conquer us. The only difference is we fought back. She looked at the child with gentle eyes. And now we are going to show the galaxy that there is another way, a better way. The news of human mercy spread faster than any weapon. On 3 other worlds, slave populations rose up against their masters. They had heard about the humans who treated prisoners with respect, who healed the sick, who freed the enslaved. They wanted the same freedom. The Dominion, which had ruled through fear for 10,000 years, suddenly faced something it had never encountered: hope. On Earth, President addressed the population. It was a somber broadcast. Behind her, a screen displayed names, millions of names scrolling endlessly. These are our dead, she said. 2,300,000 human beings who gave their lives in this war. Soldiers, doctors, engineers, pilots, ordinary people who became heroes. Her voice cracked slightly. I cannot promise that the war will end soon. I cannot promise that the losses will stop. All I can promise is that their sacrifice will mean something. She took a deep breath. We did not start this war. We did not want this war, but we will finish it. And when we do, the galaxy will know that humanity stands for something more than just survival. We stand for justice. We stand for freedom. and we will not rest until every species that suffers under cruelty has the chance to be free. Private Minu watched the broadcast from a trench on a distant battlefield. He had survived dozens of fights. He had lost friends. He had killed enemies. He was not the same innocent farm boy who had left Nu a year ago. But when he heard the president's words, he felt something stir in his chest. Pride, purpose, the knowledge that even in the darkness of war, humanity was choosing to be something better. "We are going to win," said beside him. She was now one arm in a cast, but her eyes were bright. "Not just the war, we are going to win the peace." Minu nodded. The fighting was far from over. The hardest battles were still ahead. But for the first time he believed that victory was possible. Not just military victory, but something deeper. A victory that would echo through history. The long march continued, and with every step humanity grew stronger. 2 years after the war began, the combined human fleet arrived at the Admiral stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking at the planet that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. It was beautiful, she had to admit. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds, a jewel floating in the darkness of space. Behind her were 3,000 ships, not just human vessels anymore, but ships from a dozen liberated species who had joined the fight. They had sent their fastest scouts. They had contributed their heavy cruisers. Even a peaceful species that had never fought a war, had sent medical ships to help. Humanity was no longer alone. "Admiral," her communications officer said, "the Emperor is demanding to speak with you." "Put him through." The holographic image of the Emperor appeared on the bridge. He was ancient, over 1,000 years old, his gray skin almost white with age. He wore golden robes covered in symbols of conquest. Behind him, his throne room was filled with advisors and generals, all of them looking terrified. "Human," the Emperor said, his voice dripping with contempt. "You have fought well, I admit this. You have done what no species has ever done before, but it ends here. I have 1 million soldiers on this planet. I have orbital defense platforms that can destroy your entire fleet. Surrender now and I will be merciful. Continue this foolishness and you will all die." Admiral smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Your Imperial Majesty," she said calmly, "I have a counteroffer. Surrender unconditionally. Accept war crimes tribunals for those who ordered the series massacre. Dissolve your military and free all enslaved species. In return, your people will be allowed to live in peace." The Emperor laughed, a cold sound that echoed through the bridge. "You dare make demands of me. I have ruled for 10,000 years. My ancestors built an empire that spans the galaxy. I will not bow to insects." "Then you leave me no choice," nodded to her communications officer. "Activate protocol." Across the galaxy, every screen, every communication device, every broadcast system suddenly changed. The Emperor's face disappeared, replaced by something else. Images, videos, documents, evidence. Doctor had spent 2 years gathering this information. Every atrocity the Dominion had ever committed, every species they had destroyed, every lie they had told. Now, for the first time, the entire galaxy saw the truth. Images of the beaten and starved in labor camps, videos of soldiers executing prisoners, documents showing how the Dominion had secretly destroyed 3 entire species to prevent them from developing technology that could threaten them, recordings of leaders laughing about the inferior races they had conquered. The broadcast lasted for 1 hour. By the time it ended, the galaxy was in chaos. On 100 worlds, enslaved peoples rose up against their masters. Rebellions that had been simmering for years finally exploded. Ships that had been loyal to the Dominion suddenly refused orders. Soldiers who had believed they were fighting for honor discovered they had been serving monsters. The effects were even more devastating. The Emperor's own generals watched the broadcast and felt their world collapse. They had believed they were the good guys. They had believed their conquests were justified. Now they saw the truth, and many of them could not bear it. 3 of the Emperor's top commanders walked into the throne room with weapons drawn. "You lied to us," one of them said, his voice shaking. "For 10,000 years you told us we were bringing order to the galaxy. Instead, we were destroying it." "This is treason," the Emperor hissed. "No," the commander replied, "this is justice." The shot echoed through the palace. The Emperor, who had ruled for a millennium, fell to the floor and did not rise again. Within hours, the government collapsed. The orbital defense platforms powered down. The million soldiers on the surface laid down their weapons. The war was over. Ambassador stood before the Galactic Council 3 weeks later. She was not the same woman who had watched helplessly as Series 7 was destroyed. She had aged, hardened, grown, but her eyes were still kind. "Representatives of the galactic community," she began, "we come before you not as conquerors but as liberators. 2 years ago, the Dominion attacked our people without warning or reason. They believed we were too weak to fight back. They were wrong." She paused, looking around the chamber. Hundreds of species watched her, some with hope, some with fear, some with grudging respect. "We could have destroyed them. We had the power to burn their worlds to ash and salt the ground so nothing would ever grow again. Some of our people wanted exactly that." She shook her head. "But we chose a different path. We chose to show that strength does not mean cruelty. We chose to prove that mercy is not weakness." She pressed a button and images appeared behind her. Human doctors treating wounded. Human engineers rebuilding destroyed cities. Human soldiers sharing food with former enemies. "The Dominion is no more," continued. "But the people remain. They will answer for their crimes. Their leaders will face justice. But the ordinary citizens, the ones who were lied to and used, will be given a chance to rebuild. They will join the galactic community as equals, not as conquerors." A murmur ran through the chamber. This was not what anyone had expected. Conquering species always became tyrants themselves. It was the way of the galaxy. "We are not perfect," admitted. "We have made mistakes. We will make more. But we believe in something that the never understood. We believe that every species, no matter how small or young or weak, has the right to be free. We believe that the galaxy can be a place of cooperation instead of conquest. And we believe that if we work together, we can build something better than what came before." She looked directly at the assembled representatives. "Humanity asks for nothing except to be treated as equals. We do not seek to rule. We do not seek tribute or submission. We only seek friendship and mutual respect. The choice is yours." The vote was not unanimous. Some species distrusted humanity. Some feared that the humans would become the new tyrants, but a majority voted in favor. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all the rights and responsibilities that came with it. 1 month later, Admiral returned to Earth. She had been offered medals, honors, parades. She refused them all. Instead, she went to the series Memorial, a quiet garden built to honor those who had died in the massacre that started everything. The garden was filled with trees imported from a dozen worlds. Flowers grew next to bushes from new. A small stream flowed through the center, its water collected from every ocean on every human planet. Walk to the central monument, a simple stone pillar with 3,217 names carved into it. She placed a single white flower at its base. "We did it," she whispered. "We made them pay. We made sure it never happens again." A small child approached her. He was perhaps 7 years old, with curious eyes and messy hair. "Excuse me," he said. "Are you the Admiral, the one who won the war?" Smiled, "I suppose I am." "Does that mean we won?" "My teacher said we won, but I do not really understand what that means." Knelt down to look at him directly. "Winning means different things to different people. We survived. We protected our families. We freed people who had been enslaved for centuries. And we made sure that what happened to the people on this memorial will never happen to anyone else." She touched the monument gently. "That is what winning looks like." The child nodded, still not fully understanding but sensing the importance of her words. "Will there be more wars?" "Perhaps. The galaxy is a big place, and there are always those who want to take what is not theirs. But now they know something they did not know before." "What?" Stood up and looked at the sky. Somewhere up there, among the stars, humanity's fleet continued to patrol, protect, and explore. The soldiers who had once marched to war now worked to keep the peace. They know that if they threaten Earth's people, humanity will rise, united, determined, and without mercy for those who harm our own. She smiled at the child. "They touched our borders once. They will never do it again." The sun set over the memorial garden. Shadows stretched across the names of the fallen, but above, the first stars were appearing, bright and endless. Humanity had proven itself, not through cruelty or conquest, but through sacrifice, unity, and an unbreakable will. The galaxy had learned to respect them. Some had even learned to fear them. And in the hearts of every human, from the soldiers who had fought to the children who would inherit the peace, a simple truth remained. They were no longer the young, weak species that others could dismiss. They were humanity. And they had only just begun.